Pride and Shadow scene, the headquarters of Shah Empire in Sarmad's world. On the 25th floor of the tallest skyscraper in the city, the grand office of Shah Empire glittered against the dark night sky. Through the massive floor, to ceiling glass windows, the city streets below resembled rivers of flowing light. Sarmad Shah sat behind his executive mahogany desk. He was around 35 years old, possessing a sharp demeanor marked by deep experience and quiet maturity. Over the past decade, through sheer grit, sleepless nights, and unrelenting passion, he had built Shah Empire into the country's leading real estate and construction conglomerate. Sarmad, you're still here? A smartly dressed, handsome man asked as he walked into the office. This was Zaid, Sarmad's childhood friend, confidant, and the vice president of Shah Empire. Their friendship traced back to a time when neither of them could afford a decent pair of shoes. Yet, whenever Sarmad achieved success, he made sure Zaid stood right beside him as an equal. Sarmad smiled softly, taking off his reading glasses. Yes, Zaid, I was reviewing the legal documents for the new urban city project step by step. You know as well as I do that our entire life's earnings are tied up in this development. Zaid stepped forward and placed a reassuring hand on Sarmad's shoulder. Sarmad, you worry far too much. Don't you trust me and our team? We've worked day and night for the past 5 years. Now that it's time to reap the rewards, you're letting fear get the best of you. I'm not fearful, Zaid, I'm just being cautious. Sarmad replied with a heavy sigh. When a person reaches such great heights, the fear of falling naturally grows. And besides, it's not just the business anymore. I have Zoya now. I can't put her future at risk. A strange, fleeting flicker crossed Zaid's eyes, one that Sarmad failed to notice. Zoya is lucky to have a husband like you. Come on, shut down the office. She must be waiting for you at home. Sarmad closed the files, put on his coat, and walked out alongside Zaid. The mansion and Zoya's bitterness. Sarmad's palatial mansion was situated in the city's most serene and opulent neighborhood. When he arrived home, Zoya was sitting in the dimly lit drawing room, gazing mindlessly at the television screen. Zoya was an extraordinarily breathtaking woman, yet profoundly superficial. She cared far more for Sarmad's wealth and status than his relentless sacrifices. Late again, Sarmad, Zoya said without bothering to turn around, her voice cold and distant. I'm sorry, Zoya. It was the final meeting for the project, Sarmad gently said, stepping closer to place a hand on her shoulder. But Zoya pulled away subtly. Always a project. Always work. Zoya sneered bitterly. I'm sick and tired of this dull, lifeless existence. What good is all this money when you can't even find a moment to sit with me? Zoya, who am I doing all this for? It's for you. I want you to have every happiness in this world, Sarmad explained softly, trying to calm her. I want time and affection, Sarmad, not just a husband who is glued to business charts 24 hours a day, Zoya retorted sarcastically. Sarmad's heart sank. He had given Zoya every luxury imaginable, yet the void in her heart seemed impossible to fill. What he didn't realize was that her resentment wasn't born out of loneliness. It was driven by a sinister betrayal brewing right behind his back. 2 nights later, Sarmad was scheduled to travel out of state for an emergency business deal. However, due to severe weather, his late night flight was cancelled. He returned home unannounced. As he walked up the grand staircase toward the master bedroom, low, hushed voices drifted from inside. How long do you plan to live in Sarmad's shadow, Zaid? Shah Empire runs on your hard work just as much as his, a voice said. It was Zoya. Sarmad froze dead in his tracks. The blood in his veins ran cold. Just a few more days. Zoya. Zaid's sinister chuckle echoed. As soon as the new project contract is signed, all the primary shares will be transferred to my name. The trap is already set. Sarmad will be framed legally and ruined completely. After that, Shah Empire will belong to me, and so will you. Sarmad began to tremble violently. The 2 people he trusted more than life itself, his best friend and his wife, were plotting his ultimate downfall. Sarmad raised his hand to push the door open and confront them, but he forced himself to hold back. No, I cannot let emotions ruin this. I will expose them legally tomorrow, he swore to himself. But he did not know that his enemies were already 2 steps ahead. The study room and Sarmad's death. The following evening, a relentless downpour lashed against the mansion windows. Thunder clapped violently, rattling the glass panes. Sarmad was sitting in his study, about to dial his personal attorney, when Zaid and Zoya walked into the room with wide, artificial smiles. Their sudden warmth sent an unsettling chill down Sarmad's spine. Sarmad, it's pouring outside. So I thought, why not the three of us share a drink and relive the old days? Zaid said, setting a bottle of expensive liquor and 3 glasses on the table. Sarmad narrowed his eyes, studying them intensely. You two seem unusually happy tonight. Just celebrating the new deal, Sarmad. Zoya said, pouring tea into a china cup and sliding it toward him. Here. Have your favorite tea. Sarmad stared down at the steaming teacup. Every instinct inside him screamed that something was wrong. But before he could refuse, Zaid placed a thick leather file in front of him. Sarmad signed this quickly. It's for the bank guarantee. Sarmad opened the file. As his eyes scanned the legal clauses, his breath caught in his throat. These were transfer documents, surrendering all ownership of Shah Empire directly to Zaid. What is the meaning of this, Zaid? Sarmad demanded. The friendly facade melted off Zaid's face, replaced by a cruel, venomous smirk. Just sign it, Sarmad, quietly. How dare you even dream of this? Sarmad reached out to hurl the teacup aside, but Zoya grabbed his arm tightly while Zaid pinned him from behind. It's too late, Sarmad. The single sip of tea you took earlier is already doing its job. Zoya whispered coldly in his ear. Sarmad gasped. In his distraction, he had indeed taken a tiny sip of the tea while talking. Within seconds, a excruciating, burning agony convulsed through Sarmad's stomach. His throat constricted, and his lungs starved for air. The poison was lethally fast. His body violently spasmed and his legs gave out, slamming him onto the hard hardwood floor. Zaid. Sarmad gasped, reaching out a trembling, desperate hand. Zaid knelt beside him and forcefully pressed Sarmad's dying, ink-stained thumb onto the legal documents. You were far too naive, Sarmad Shah. In the corporate world, innocence is just a synonym for suicide. Shah Empire is mine now. Zoya looked down at Sarmad's writhing body with pure disdain. I never loved you, Sarmad. I only loved your money. And now I get to have it through Zaid. Tears of blood welled in Sarmad's fading eyes. His chest heaved as his lungs collapsed. Before the cold darkness swallowed his consciousness entirely, a silent, agonizing cry echoed from the depths of his soul. God of the heavens, if justice truly exists, grant me one more chance. Let me witness my killers burn in the hell of their own making. His eyes went glassy. His heart stopped. Inside the quiet room, only the sound of the falling rain remained. The slums, trash dump and Ayaan's identity. Hey, get up. Wake up, kid. A harsh kick from a heavy boot jolted Sarmad's soul back into reality. Sarmad gasped violently. A desperate, ragged breath like a drowning man breaking through the ocean's surface. His chest felt like it was on fire, his throat seared, an excruciating pain coursed through every nerve in his body. Where am I? He muttered, his vision blurry and disoriented. He wasn't in his luxurious study. He was lying beside a filthy, overflowing trash heap near an open sewer in the slums. Rainwater flooded the muddy alley. He looked down at his hands. They weren't his hands. These hands were rough, dark, and stained with heavy motor oil and grease. The hands of a manual laborer. Panicked, he scrambled to his feet and stumbled toward a puddle of stagnant rainwater on the pavement. He looked down at his reflection and recoiled in absolute terror. The reflection in the water was not the handsome, refined face of Sarmad Shah. Staring back at him was the face of a 22-year-old young man, with intense, dark eyes, light stubble, and a raw, bleeding scar across his cheek. At that exact moment, an agonizing surge of memories exploded inside his brain. Two distinct minds collided violently within one skull. He realized this body belonged to a young man named Ayaan. Ayaan was a poor, orphaned mechanic who worked at a local auto shop. The previous night, Zaid's street thugs had beaten Ayaan unconscious over an extortion dispute and dumped his body here, believing him to be dead. At the exact moment Sarmad Shah's life was snuffed out in the mansion, this young man's soul had departed his broken body, and fate had bound Sarmad's vengeful spirit into Ayaan's physical vessel. Sarmad, now residing within Ayaan's body, sat down in the mud and began to laugh hysterically. His laughter was a haunting mixture of profound pain and terrifying retribution. You killed Sarmad Shah, Zaid! You threw his legacy into the shadows. He slammed his fist into the ground, his nails digging into his palms until they bled. But you couldn't kill the laws of nature. Sarmad's mercy died last night. Now, there is only Ayaan, and Ayaan will tear your world down brick by brick. Silent preparation, the new avatar being reborn, was a miracle. But taking down powerful enemies without money, influence, or identity was suicide. Sarmad, now Ayaan, knew that acting impulsively would only lead to a second death. He had to play the long game. He began leveraging his elite business intellect inside Ayaan's physical body. Year 1. Ayaan abandoned the auto shop. He tapped into his memories as Sarmad Shah, recalling offshore bank accounts and hidden investments he had set up years ago. Assets that neither Zaid nor Zoya knew existed. Using encrypted channels, he accessed those secret funds. He entered the stock market. With Sarmad Shah's legendary market foresight, Ayaan turned a few $100,000 into millions within 6 short months. Year 2. Ayaan completely reinvented himself. He traveled abroad to refine his posture, speech, and corporate charisma. He established a high-end investment and security firm, Ayaan Securities and Investments. He was no longer a penniless mechanic from the slums. He was now Ayaan Malik, the most mysterious, ruthless, and rapidly rising young billionaire in the country. Inside him, Sarmad Shah's intellect burned brightly, but on the outside, he was a completely new cold and calculated storm. Meanwhile, Zaid had consolidated his power, renaming Shah Empire to Zaid Group of Industries. Zoya had become the city's top high society socialite, flaunting diamonds, luxury cars, and stolen wealth. Little did they know. The storm they thought they had buried 2 years ago was about to knock violently on their front door. The annual business gala at the Grand Hotel, the grand ballroom of the Royal Crystal Hotel, was blindingly bright. Chandelier lights sparkled against crystal glasses as the city's elite corporate titans, politicians, and socialites gathered for the annual business gala. Zaid walked through the crowd with his head held high. Wearing a bespoke dark suit, he oozed the arrogance of a man who believed he owned the world. Beside him was Zoya, dripping in emeralds and dressed in a designer silk gown. "Zaid, everyone is talking about this new investor," Zoya whispered, adjusting her diamond bracelet. "They say he acquired 3 major tech firms in Europe before turning his eyes toward our market." "Let them talk, Zoya," Zaid sneered softly, sipping his champagne. "No one enters this city's real estate market without coming through Zaid Group. If he has money, he will eventually need me." Suddenly, the heavy oak doors at the entrance swung open. A hush fell over the room. A young man stepped inside, flanked by 2 towering security guards. He wore a tailor-made charcoal suit, his posture commanding absolute authority. His dark eyes swept across the room with a cold, piercing intensity. It was Ayaan Malik. Zoya froze the moment her eyes met his. A strange, inexplicable chill ran down her spine. The way the young man carried himself, the quiet gravity in his steps, it felt unsettlingly familiar. "That's him," Zaid murmured, adjusting his tie. "Ayaan Malik." Zaid and Zoya walked over to Ayaan. "Mr. Malik," Zaid announced with an expansive smile, extending his hand. "Welcome to our city. I am Zaid, chairman of Zaid Group of Industries, and this is my wife Zoya." Ayaan turned his gaze toward Zaid's outstretched hand. He let the silence stretch for 3 agonizing seconds before slowly reaching out and gripping Zaid's hand. His grip was tight, cold, and unrelenting. "Mr. Zaid," Ayaan spoke, his voice deep, controlled, and echoing with an underlying gravelly edge. "I've heard a great deal about you. They say you built your empire, almost overnight." Zaid's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but he quickly recovered. "Hard work and taking the right opportunities at the right time, Mr. Of course." Ayaan smiled, a razor-thin, dangerous smile. Then, his dark eyes shifted directly onto Zoya. "And Mrs. Zoya, a pleasure. You look like a woman who appreciates the finer things in life, no matter the cost." Zoya felt her breath catch in her throat. The stare this young stranger gave her wasn't the look of an admirer. It felt like the gaze of a ghost passing judgment. "Thank you, Mr. Malik," she stammered, taking a step back behind Zaid. "I hear your firm is looking for international capital for the new Coastal Heights development, Zaid," Ayaan said, casually pulling a silver cigarette case from his pocket. He picked a cigarette, tapped it twice on the silver casing, tap, tap, and brought it to his lips. Zoya's heart violently hammered against her ribs. Tap, tap. Sarmad used to do that exact same thing whenever he made a critical decision. "Yes, we are," Zaid replied, his eyes gleaming with greed. "It's a multi-billion-dollar project. With your capital and my local influence, we could double our returns." "Double?" Ayaan chuckled, exhaling a thin trail of smoke. "Mr. Zaid, when I invest, I don't just look for returns. I look for total control. Let's hold a formal meeting at your office tomorrow. Let's see how much your empire is truly worth." Ayaan turned on his heel and walked away into the crowd, leaving Zaid thrilled at the prospect of billions, and Zoya shaking with an unknown dread. The boardroom of Zaid Group, the following morning. Ayaan arrived at the headquarters of Zaid Group, the very building that used to bear the name Shah Empire. As Ayaan walked through the marble corridors, memories flooded his mind. He remembered designing these hallways, choosing the oak panels, and celebrating victories in these rooms as Sarmad Shah. Now, he was walking through them as the architect of its destruction. Inside the executive boardroom, Zaid had laid out the blueprints for the Coastal Heights project. Mr. Malik, as you can see, this project guarantees a 300% return, Zaid said, sliding a thick proposal across the polished glass table. All we need is a $50 million cash injection to secure the offshore permits. Ayaan opened the file, barely looking at the numbers. He already knew the hidden flaws of this project, because as Sarmad, he had abandoned this exact venture years ago due to severe environmental and legal liabilities hidden deep within the city charter. 50 million is a small sum. Zaid, Ayaan said casually, tossing the file aside. I will give you 80 million. And Zaid's eyes widened in sheer disbelief. 80 million. On one condition. Ayaan raised a single finger. You must put up your primary shares in Zaid Group and your personal estate as collateral. Standard procedure for an investment of this size. Zaid hesitated for a brief moment. Putting up his entire company and his mansion as collateral was immensely risky. But the greed of doubling $80 million blinded his judgment completely. It's a deal, Zaid declared, signing his signature on the contract before Ayaan could change his mind. Ayaan picked up the signed agreement. You signed your own death warrant, Zaid. Sarmad's inner voice whispered coldly. A pleasure doing business with you, Zaid. Ayaan said, standing up. Expect the funds to move, very quickly. Chapter 80, The Falling Dominoes Scene. 3 months later. Chaos and collapse. The trap closed faster than Zaid could comprehend. 3 weeks after the contracts were finalized, the federal government unexpectedly launched a massive crackdown on illegal coastal land developments. The Coastal Heights project was declared completely illegal, its permits revoked, and the land seized by the state. The news hit the stock market like a megaton bomb. Within 48 hours, Zaid Group's stock plummeted by 80%. Panic erupted outside the headquarters as investors demanded their money back, and banks froze all corporate accounts. How could this happen? Zaid screamed in his private office, throwing glass bottles against the wall. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair disabled. Where is Ayaan Malik? Call him! Mr. Malik's legal team is on line 1. His secretary quivered, handing him the phone. Zaid snatched the receiver. Ayaan, what is happening? The project was seized. You need to inject more liquidity to save the company. Ayaan's voice on the other end was dead silent, followed by a soft, mocking laugh. Inject liquidity. No, Zaid. I am exercising my rights under Clause 14 of our contract. You defaulted on the collateral terms. As of 1 hour ago, your shares, your accounts, and your mansion belong to my firm. Zaid felt the world spin beneath his feet. You set me up. You knew the permits were illegal? You were always blind when it came to greed, Zaid. Just as you were 2 years ago. Ayaan replied chillingly. I'll see you at your mansion tonight, to collect my property. The line went dead. Zaid slumped onto his chair, breathing heavily. His mind frantically tried to connect the dots. 2 years ago. How did he know about 2 years ago? The mansion in rising paranoia. Rain pounded against the high windows of the mansion. The exact same heavy downpour as the night Sarmad died. Inside the living room, Zoya was pacing hysterically. The news of their bankruptcy had broken on every major television channel. We are ruined, Zaid. We have nothing left. Zoya shrieked, clutching her face. The bank is liquidating our cars. Our accounts are frozen. Who is this Ayaan Malik? Why is he doing this to us? Zaid sat on the sofa, pouring himself a tumbler of neat whiskey with trembling hands. It doesn't make sense. He knew things only Sarmad knew. The legal loopholes, the collateral clauses. Stop saying his name. Zoya screamed, her voice cracking with fear. Sarmad is dead. We poisoned him. We watched him die right on that floor. Then explain to me why Ayaan Malik holds the same lighter. Explain why he taps his cigarette twice. Explain why he looks at you with the same eyes Sarmad had before he breathed his last. Zaid roared, slamming the glass down. Suddenly, the front doors of the mansion burst open. Cold wind and rain swept into the grand foyer. Heavy footsteps echoed down the marble hallway. Ayaan stepped into the room, holding a black umbrella. He folded it slowly and handed it to his bodyguard, stepping into the dim light of the living room. It's polite to greet the new owner of the house, Ayaan said softly. Zoya backed away until her spine hit the grand staircase. Get out of here! This is private property. Not anymore, Mrs. Zoya. Ayaan pulled out the original deed of the mansion, tossing it onto the coffee table. This house, the grounds, the furniture, even the glass you're holding. Zaid, it all belongs to me now. Zaid pulled a revolver from his coat pocket and aimed it directly at Ayaan's chest. Who are you? Tell me who you really are, or I swear to God I'll put a bullet through your head right now. Ayaan didn't flinch. He didn't even look at the gun. Instead, he took 3 calm steps forward until the barrel of the gun was resting directly against his chest. Shoot then, Zaid. Ayaan whispered, his eyes flashing with a terrifying, unearthly intensity. Shoot me again. You already did it 2 years ago. The truth unveiled. Zaid's hand began to shake uncontrollably. The room felt suffocatingly cold. What are you talking about? Zaid stammered, sweat pouring down his forehead. 2 years ago, in this exact room, during a storm just like this one. Ayaan spoke, his voice dropping into the exact tone, cadence, and inflection of Sarmad Shah. You handed me a file. You pretended to be my brother. And your wife handed me a cup of tea. Zoya gasped, clutching her throat as a blood-curdling scream trapped itself in her chest. Sarmad. Zoya whimpered, collapsing onto her knees. No.
It can't be. You died.
I did die, Zoya. Ayaan turned to her, his voice echoing like thunder inside the room. My body died, my heart stopped, and you threw my memory into the dirt, but my soul refused to rest. God sent me back in this body, to deliver the justice human law failed to give. Zaid lost his mind. You're a demon? You're a ghost. Bang! Zaid pulled the trigger in absolute terror. The bullet grazed Ayaan's left shoulder, tearing through his suit jacket. Blood began to seep through the fabric, staining his white shirt red. Zoya shrieked, covering her ears. Ayaan didn't fall. He barely even swayed. He looked down at the blood dripping onto his hand, then looked up at Zaid with a haunting, victorious laugh. Is that the best you can do, Zaid? Ayaan stepped forward, snatched the revolver effortlessly out of Zaid's trembling hand, and tossed it aside. You tried to kill Sarmad with poison. You tried to kill Ayaan with a bullet. But you cannot kill a man who has already walked through the gates of death. Ayaan grabbed Zaid by his collar and threw him violently onto the floor. Right onto the exact patch of wood where Sarmad had writhed in pain 2 years ago. Look at yourself, Zaid, Ayaan spat, standing over him like a giant. No money, no empire, no dignity. You are nothing. A flashing red and blue light suddenly illuminated the heavy rain outside the mansion windows. Sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. Police. Zaid gasped, staring at the front door. Did you think I brought a gun to kill you? Ayaan chuckled coldly, pulling a digital voice recorder from his pocket and laying it on the table. I brought the law. The recorder began playing a crystal, clear audio file, a recording from the annual gala and from earlier meetings where Zaid had openly bragged about framing Sarmad, taking over Shah Empire illegally, and ordering hits on local business rivals. The federal authorities have spent the last 2 weeks analyzing your offshore accounts, your fake signatures on Sarmad Shah's asset transfers, and the physical evidence of his murder, Ayaan said. You won't die tonight, Zaid. You will spend every remaining day of your miserable life inside a concrete cell, broke, forgotten, and haunted by my name. The heavy double doors were kicked open. A squad of armed police officers rushed into the room, led by a senior detective.
Zaid.
Zoya, you are under arrest for corporate fraud, murder, and conspiracy! The detective barked, slamming handcuffs onto Zaid's wrists. Zaid didn't even fight back. He stared at Ayaan with wide, broken eyes, crying out hysterically as he was dragged across the floor. He's Sarmad. He came back from the dead. Tell them who you are. Tell them. The police paid no attention to his insane babbling, treating it as the breakdown of a fallen criminal. Zoya sobbed hysterically on the floor, reaching out toward Ayaan. Sarmad, please forgive me. I was forced. It was all Zaid. Ayaan looked down at her with absolute indifference. Forgiveness was Sarmad's weakness, Zoya. And Sarmad is no longer here. The officers pulled Zoya up and led her out into the pouring rain, leaving the mansion silent once more. The cliffside overlooking the city the next morning, the storm had passed. A brilliant dawn broke over the horizon, painting the morning sky in shades of gold and crimson. Ayaan stood at the edge of a high cliff overlooking the vast city below. His left arm was wrapped in a crisp white bandage beneath his coat. He closed his eyes and took a deep, clear breath. For the first time in 2 years, the burning fire in his chest, the suffocating agony of betrayal and revenge, was gone. The violent storm inside his soul had finally settled into a profound, tranquil peace. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, old-framed photograph of Sarmad Shah. He looked at his own former face for a long moment. Your name has been cleared, Ayaan whispered to the wind. Shah Empire is in good hands again. The evil that destroyed us is behind bars forever. He opened his hand and let the wind carry the photograph over the edge of the cliff, watching it flutter gracefully into the abyss below. Sarmad Shah was finally at rest. Ayaan turned back toward his car parked on the quiet road. A new morning was beginning, and a new life awaited him. A life no longer bound by vengeance, but lived with purpose, strength, and ultimate peace.